Yes, guys, welcome back to the MMA Sucker Podcast. As always, I'm Frazer Krohn, and this one will be a look ahead. It'll be a bit of a preview for UFC. What are they calling it this time? UFC Fight Night Abu Dhabi. Robert Whittaker versus Reinier in the main event. The rest of the card it's not a bad card at all. There's a couple of highlights, a couple of disappointments that Movsar Evloev and Aaron Pico are no longer on the card. I think that was a Evloev injury, but let's jump straight into it. Robert Whittaker versus Reinier. What do we think about this fight? I think it's a really good fight. Whittaker has obviously taken a little bit of time out of the octagon since his loss to Chimaev. That was in October of last year. Prior to that, he probably got the biggest win, or one of the most dominant wins, I should say, of his career against Ikram Alexeirov. He obviously took that fight on short notice. Alexeirov took that fight on short notice, and he blasted him out in 1 minute and 49 seconds. Really, really good, really solid, really, convincing win. That was in Saudi Arabia. This one's in Abu Dhabi. So, maybe there's something in the air for Robert Whittaker in that part of the world. But the former undisputed champion and interim champions had a very up and down career since capturing the belt. He went on that crazy run after moving up from welterweight, where he beat the likes of Brad Tavares, finished Brad Tavares in 44 seconds, beat Uriah Hall, Rafael Natal, Derek Brunson in that crazy fight. I think that was in Australia, that fight. Then he knocked out Jacare. Then he beat Yoel Romero twice. He beat him twice, once for the belt, for the interim belt, and then I believe the other one was for the undisputed strap. I can't quite remember. That was back in 2018. Then obviously he fought Izzy, and that was when Izzy was prime Izzy, and unfortunately for Whittaker fans, he lost that one in the second round. But then he had somewhat of a career revival. He beat Darren Till, he beat Jared Cannonier, he beat Calvin Gastelum. He then went in there again with Israel Adesanya for the rematch, lost again, beat Marvin Vettori, then he lost to Dricus du Plessis, then he beat Paulo Costa and Alexeirov, and then he was blown out of there in 3 minutes 34 seconds by Khamzat Chimaev. So he's had an up and down career since capturing the belt, let's just say that, but he is still at the tender age of 34. He's got a lot of miles on the clock. He's got a 34 professional fights, 26 and 8 record, and then you compare that to his opponent Reinier, who is fairly new to UFC fans. He's not new to MMA fans, because MMA fans have known Reinier for a long time from his days in One Championship, and he was undefeated at 15-0. He beat some of the biggest names the One Championship has to offer. And then he went in there against Anatoly Malakine. I've butchered that, but he lost to him twice. He was then cut. He was then let go from One Championship. He fought once for UAE Warriors, and then he got the opportunity in the UFC. And many people didn't think that he would do maybe as well as he has done. He's had 3 fights. He's 3-0 with 3 finishes. First fight, Gerard Meerschaert. Now, Meerschaert is the litmus test for a lot of UFC fighters who are coming over from other promotions. We've had Khamzat Chimaev face him. We obviously had Reinier face him. And with the greatest respect to Gerard Meerschaert, if you can't beat Gerard Meerschaert, you're not going to be able to mix it with the best. And that's just a fact, unfortunately. Because he's wily, he's gritty, he's experienced, he knows how to defend himself. He's a ground specialist, Gerard Meerschaert, and Reinier is also a ground specialist. 14 of his 20 wins have come via submission. Meerschaert, ground specialist. Reinier subbed him in the 3rd round. Then he went in there at UFC 311, and that was at the beginning of this year in January, and he blew Kevin Holland out of the water. He submitted Kevin Holland in 3 minutes. And then we had the fight with Bo Nickel, which in my opinion was a step down in difficulty for Reinier, but a step up in kind of getting the eyes for Reinier de Ridder. You know, he fought Bo Nickel. Bo Nickel was at the time 7-0. He was 4-0 in the UFC, and Reinier de Ridder showed Bo Nickel that there are levels to this game. When you've got 21 professional fights and you're going in there against Bo Nickel, who's got 7 professional fights, you've mixed it with the best in one championship, you've mixed it with the best with some of the elites in the UFC. Like I said, well, some of the good fighters in the UFC. You know, Kevin Holland, Gerard Meerschaert, both great fighters. Being put in there against Bo Nickel, who was there, and he tried to stand and bang with Reinier de Ridder, which, as we know, didn't quite pay off. You know, he landed one takedown, Bo Nickel, in that first round. He got 2 minutes of control time. De Ridder had 1 minute 52 of control time, but de Ridder was landing on Bo Nickel with relative ease, and then the finish came from knees to the body. He did some great work in the clinch, and he finished Bo Nickel, not only handing Bo Nickel his first loss, but handing Bo Nickel his first finish loss. Just going to pull up a few of the stats for you. Average fight time, it's difficult because Reinier de Ridder, like I said, has only got three UFC fights, and this is his average fight time in the UFC. 7 minutes 23. Robert Whittaker 13 minutes and 7. Height, Reinier de Ridder has a 4-inch height advantage and a 5-inch reach advantage, and I think I'm going to go on to it in a minute. I think he may be able to use them. As far as Robert Whittaker's concerned, his takedown defense 81%, really, really good takedown defense. He does mix in the takedowns himself. He averages 0.8 takedowns per 15 minutes, whereas Reinier de Ridder, although it's a small sample size, 4.74 takedowns per 15 minutes. He took Gerard Meerschaert down 5 times of 13 attempts. So we know where Reinier de Ridder wants this fight, and we know where Robert Whittaker wants this fight. So, keys to victory and prediction time. What does Robert Whittaker have to do, and what does Reinier de Ridder have to do to actually win this fight, to get their hand raised in Abu Dhabi and really, you know, put that cementing, sort of put their name into the hat at middleweight? Because we've got a middleweight title fight coming up between Dricus du Plessis and Khamzat Chimaev. You know, we've got Imavov versus Cal Bahalo. Outside of that, there's not an awful lot of options. So these two guys have got a really good opportunity to throw their names in the hat. So let's look at Robert Whittaker first. For me, he has to jab heavy and jab often. He needs to get that jab going because he's got a really good jab. He's got really good boxing, Robert Whittaker. But he needs to make that jab heavy. He needs to make it as a weapon. Like we saw Alexander Usyk do to Daniel Dubois this past weekend. He landed 3 really big jabs in the first round, and it kind of stunned Dubois. Robert Whittaker has to do that, because that way, if he jabs heavy and jabs often, he's finding his range. As we said, he's on the wrong end of a 4-inch height and a 5-inch reach advantage. So if he can get his jab in there, which we know that he's got a really good jab, he can do well, and he needs to do it often as well. He needs to constantly have Reinier de Ridder thinking about what's going to come next, and it's going to be that jab of Whittaker all the time. I've put inside the octagon, hold the middle. Now what this means is the mini octagon inside of the larger octagon on the mat. There's a black octagon line. He needs to stay inside of that, because we know Reinier de Ridder wants to look at taking Whittaker down. And Whittaker is a really good wrestler. I believe he wanted to compete at one stage for the Australian team in freestyle wrestling at the Commonwealth Games. Don't think that ever came to light. But he's a really good open mat wrestler. He doesn't want to make it easy for Reinier de Ridder to take him down by closing himself up against the fence. That doesn't make sense to me. He wants to keep as much distance between his back and the fence as possible, which does mean holding his feet a little bit more, but he can use that jab to keep Reinier de Ridder off him. As soon as he feels himself being sort of corralled into the fence, use that jab, keep Reinier de Ridder off him, jab heavy, jab often, stay inside of the octagon, hold the middle ground. And it does, like I said, it does mean that he has to hold his feet a little bit more often than maybe he usually would. But it's what is necessary for Robert Whittaker to win this fight. not get corralled up against the fence, not allow Reinier de Ridder to get into the clinch, to work the body, work the legs, work the head with those shots in the clinch, which you saw him do so well against Bo Nickel, not be able to work his takedowns, make it difficult for Reinier de Ridder to get onto his top game, and Whittaker should do well in this fight. Another way in which I really think that he can do well is use the sliding oblique kick to the knee, and that's a kind of stamp down to the knee that we've seen him do. And that way, these kind of work all in tandem. If he's using that sliding oblique kick to the knee, or he's using a lot of side kicks in the sort of karate stance that he often has, he will keep distance between the cage and his back, and that is exactly what Robert Whittaker needs to do to be able to win this fight. Because like I said, I think if Robert Whittaker does see himself being corralled up against the fence, that's when the issues may occur for the Reaper. That oblique kick to the knee is frustrating. We saw it when Max fought Dustin this past weekend. It offsets you. It makes you rethink your rhythm a little bit. You're just maybe finding your range, and then you have to adjust. And and move your legs out of the way, or have your legs, essentially stamped on by Whittaker. If he can use both the jab and this oblique kick to the knee, there's two weapons there that are being used, one high, one low. It's going to confuse Reinier de Ridder, and he's not going to know what's coming next. And if he uses them both often, the oblique kick to the knee, why it's so good, is that it's not an easy kick to catch and get a takedown from. So Whittaker can hurt his opponent without the fear of being taken down. Whereas if he uses, straight kicks or roundhouse kicks, Reinier de Ridder is more than capable of wrapping up one of those kicks, taking Whittaker to the ground and potentially finishing things. If you are Reinier de Ridder, pressure. You have to put pressure on Robert Whittaker to push him up against the fence. You have to be the one on the front foot. Even though I said that Robert Whittaker needs to hold the centre of the octagon, Reinier de Ridder has to be on the front foot. He has to be the one pressuring, putting lots of things out there, jabs, kicks to the body. He's got the height, he's got the reach advantage. He's also a southpaw, so that lead right hand needs to be constantly out there, putting pressure on Robert Whittaker, throwing straights down the pipe, threatening the takedown. He needs to do it, and he needs to do it from the minute one, from the first bell. He needs to be putting that jab out there. He needs to be pushing Whittaker back, because that leads into my second key to victory for Reinier de Ridder: clinch early and clinch often. He was phenomenal, and although this does somewhat negate his reach advantage, he was phenomenal in the clinch against Bo Nickel. He can frustrate Robert Whittaker by getting Whittaker into the clinch. Because he's so much taller than Robert Whittaker, he's really going to be able to pull down on the head of Robert Whittaker inside of the clinch, which I think can be really, really, really important for Reinier de Ridder in this fight. If he's able to, really hurt Whittaker to the body. We've seen Whittaker hurt on the break of the clinch before as well. I think Darren Till had some success when the two men were in the clinch and they broke out of the clinch. This is what Reinier de Ridder has to do in order to finish Robert Whittaker, in my opinion. What I would say is that I do think he will take Whittaker down, but if he takes Whittaker down, he needs to prioritise his position over his submission, because Whittaker is extremely good on the ground, and you don't want. Although Reinier de Ridder is phenomenal at finding those submissions, just ask Jared Meerschaert, ask Kevin Holland. Although he is amazing at finding them, you have to be careful when they are found not to lose the position. With someone like Robert Whittaker, who's going to look to get back to his feet pretty much as soon as possible, he's not going to want to hang out on the floor with Reinier de Ridder. Be careful when you are in that dominant position. Don't go searching the submission. Make sure your position's right. Maybe soften up Whittaker with a few blows, then look for the submission. But make sure that your position is solid, because with someone, like I say, as good as Robert Whittaker on the ground, he will look to get up to his feet, and he will probably have a lot of success in getting up to his feet. So position over submission is my final key to victory for Reinier de Ridder. What I would say is, obviously, Whittaker lost his last fight by face crank. I don't know what the situation with his teeth are at the moment. That's something de Ridder could look to do. if you can't find his neck, crank on the face, which is it's a horrible way of saying it, but unfortunately this is MMA. It's all legal. And now to my prediction for the main event. I'm finding this one really difficult to predict because Robert Whittaker is one of my favourite fighters to watch, and Reinier has been one of my favourite fighters in the UFC since coming over. He's come in, he's got that attitude of, I know I'm the best, and I'm going to prove it. Whoever you put in front of me, Meerschaert, Holland, Bo Nickel, doesn't matter, I will run through them all. With that being said, I think I'm going to pick Robert Whittaker by decision. He's not a prolific finisher of fights. Just looking through his last couple of wins, yes, he finished his last win against Alex Aroff, but then Paulo Costa, Marvin Vettori, Calvin Gastelum, Jared Cannonier, Darren Till, Yoel Romero twice. All of those have gone the distance, and all have gone. I think all of them with a 5-round distance, apart from maybe. Was Cannonier? Oh no, Cannonier was a co-main event, and that was over 3 rounds. He's not a prolific finisher, but I think he is smart enough and wily enough and experienced enough at this elite level to go the full 25 minutes. With that being said, I can see Reinier de Ridder pulling off an upset. Just going to have a quick look at see who is the favourite. So Whittaker is a slight favourite on Tapology at -175, with de Ridder coming in at +150. But I expect that to maybe change throughout the week. I'm recording this on Wednesday today. There's a good chance that changes throughout the week. I'm going with Robert Whittaker. I think if Whittaker loses, I think we could maybe see a retirement from Robert Whittaker, or a serious question asked about his sort of motivation going into future fights, purely because if he's not in and around the title picture, what's the point for Robert Whittaker now? He's proven that he at one point in time was the best in the world. So we will see what is next for Robert Whittaker. The rest of the card then, like I said, it's not an amazing card, but it's not a bad card at all. In the co-main event, we've got Petr Yan versus Marcus McGee. This is a very strange fight. Let me just pull up the UFC rankings for a second, because Marcus McGee, from what I can remember, or from what I can gather, is not ranked very highly. Yeah, he's ranked number 12. Marcus McGee, ranked number 12. Petr Yan is ranked number 3. Now, this would have made a lot more sense if Petr Yan, like at one point in his career, was coming off 3 straight losses. He lost to Aljamain Sterling, lost to Sean O'Malley, lost to Merab. Then you maybe fight the sort of number 11 ranked guy. But he's not. He's coming off 2 victories. He beat Song Yadong and he beat Devison Figueiredo last time out. Both of those, I believe, were... No, sorry, the Devison Figueiredo one, he was favourite going into it, and that was a main event. So he's gone 5 rounds. Now, Marcus McGee is 10-1. I think he's on a pretty decent run streak. He's undefeated in the UFC. He's beat Journey Newson, JP Buys, Gaston Bolanos, and Jonathan Martinez last time out. But this is a big risk for Petr Yan. If he loses to Marcus McGee, I can't see the upside of this for Petr Yan. Just getting another name on his record. We have the announcement of the title fight. I'll go on to talk about that a little bit at the end. I just don't see the upside for Petr Yan in this fight. Marcus McGee is a tough matchup. He's tall, he's long, he's a finisher, he's active when he does get the fight in and around the range that he wants. I think this is a very fan-friendly fight. I think both men will come to stand and bang, and I think Petr Yan will win the matchup. But with that being said, Marcus McGee's no joke. Like I said, 4 straight wins, 3 finishes, beat Jonathan Martinez last time out. He's not a massive underdog. I'm surprised at how this one's come about, and I don't think it's a bad thing at all, but I am surprised about how this one's come about, because I would have thought this fight would have come about earlier on in the career of Petr Yan, when he was on a slightly bigger losing streak. He's now on a 2-fight winning run. He's ranked number 3. Umar Nurmagomedov's just sat out, not competing. Sean O'Malley sat out, not competing. Marlon Vera sat out, not competing. Bautista not competing. Rob Font not competing. All of these guys are ranked higher than Marcus McGee, but fair play. Petiana's gone in there. He's obviously, agreed to the fight. Marcus McGee's getting a massive opportunity, and if Marcus McGee wins, what's stopping him from going? He'll break the top 5. Petiana's ranked number 3. It's all upside for Marcus McGee. Elsewhere, we've got Shara Bullet returning after his first loss. He lost to MVP in February. That was where was that? It was a co-main event in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. He returned, taking a step down in competition against Andre Barrio. But with that being said, it's a tough fight. But with that being said, Marc-Andre Barrio is the sort of, he did break on to he started. I thought he'd do a lot better than he did, for want of a better phrase. He started his UFC career without a win in 4. He then won 2, lost 1, won 1, lost 1, won 2, lost 3. Then beat Bruno Silva last time out in he got a performance of the night at UFC 315, 316, no 315, but that was against Bruno Silva, who himself, that was his 5th straight loss. I don't even believe he's in the UFC anymore. This is an opportunity for Shara Bullet to get another name on his record, of a recognisable name, should we say, on his record, and Marc-Andre Barrio is custom made for someone like Shara Bullet, who enjoys men walking towards him so he can hit them and counter them. Elsewhere on the card, there's not an awful lot that sort of sticks out for me. Almabayev versus Ochoa at flyweight is a fun one. Nikita Krylov returns. He was on a really good run until he lost to Dominic Reyes last time out. That was a difficult one for him. He takes on Bogdan Guskov, who himself is 3-1 with 3 finishes. Bryce Mitchell makes his bantamweight debut. I believe it's his debut. Yeah, it's his bantamweight debut against Saeed Nurmagomedov. Not an easy fight for either man. Muslim Salikov competes. He's always in fun fights. The king of kung fu. He's always in good fights. He always pulls off, or seems to always pull off, something really exciting. So that is certainly one to look out for. Muslim Salikov competing on the card. We've got Demont Blackshear versus Davey Grant. Great fight bantamweight. Definitely tune in. That's the 5th fight on the card. Aside from that, you got Ibo Aslan. I think from what I can remember, he's just violent. You got finish victory on. Right, he's 14-2, never gone the distance. He lost to Ion Kutalaba last time out, but prior to that was on a 2-fight winning run, both of which came via TKO. He's got 14 wins, 14 knockouts. Tune in because that's going to be violent. He takes on Billy Elenkana, who himself, he's got 7 wins, 4 finishes. So that could be a fun fight, but definitely tune in for that one for the violence that is promised by Aslan. And the only women's fight on the card is Tabitha Ricci versus Amanda Ribas. Amanda Ribas, obviously looking to return after losing 2 straight to Rose Namajunas and Mackenzie Dern. So that's the UFC Abu Dhabi card this weekend. I just want to briefly talk for a couple of minutes about the 3 major fight announcements. The 3 major fight announcements, and we had 5 sort of announcements last night. Biggest of which, first undisputed title fight for Tom Aspinall. He defends in the main event of UFC 231 against Cyril Gann. in Abu Dhabi, I believe. What do we think of this one? Cyril Gane, let me check when Cyril Gane last competed, because from what I remember, he didn't look great. So Cyril Gane, since losing to John Jones, beat Sergey Spivak, who doesn't, everyone does, in Paris in the main event, and then he beat Alexander Volkov by split decision. Now, he didn't win that fight, in my opinion. I think this is custom made for Tom to look good. He's been a lot more active than Cyril Gane, just historically speaking. Cyril Gane had one fight in 2024, whereas Tom Aspinall, I believe, had three. Tom Aspinall also only had one fight in 2024. So I tell a lie. They're not any more active than one another, but it just seems like Tom has been much more ready for this fight than Cyril Gane with respect to Gane. It's the only fight to make, really, isn't it? It's the only fight to make at heavyweight, and then outside of that, we hope that heavyweight prospect comes through. I think Tom Aspinall will run through Cyril Gane. He's full of confidence, and he doesn't. From what I can remember, I think Tom Aspinall said Cyril Gane was running from him, and he's due a beating. So that should be a phenomenal fight. I'll do a deep dive on that fight far closer to the event itself. We also got the UFC 320 main event, the rematch between Alex Pereira and Magomed Ankalaev, official. We heard that it was rumoured to be happening at this event, or maybe it would happen in Abu Dhabi the month later, or later on that month, sorry. It's not. It's happening. I'm not sure where UFC 320 is. Let me just double check. I am excited for it. It's at the T-Mobile Arena. I'm excited for it. It should be a good fight. It really should. I did see the shape that Alex Pereira was in this week, which worries me ever so slightly. And Alex Pereira, as we know, does spread himself extremely thinly with his sort of media duties. But how's Alex Pereira going to look when he's coming off a loss? If you remember, the last time he came off a loss was to Israel Adesanya. He then obviously moved up in weight, so it was a bit different. But then he went on that killer run. If you look at his record through his time in the UFC, he's fought very, very often. In 2021, he fought once in November. 2022, he fought 3 times. 2023, he fought 3 times. 2024, he fought 3 times. And that was April, June, October in 2024. He only fought in March. I would have preferred it if he had a little bit longer off. It is what it is. He hasn't. He returns. Co-main event is the co-main event we all expected. Merab Dvalishvili versus Corey Sandhagen. I'm happy that this one has actually come to light. Merab fought in June, fighting again in October. Phenomenal sort of schedule for Merab. Corey Sandhagen, it's going to be a long night for Corey Sandhagen. It's a tough fight. Merab is a tough fight for anyone. He's coming off a 1-fight winning streak, but he did dominate Davison Figueiredo in that fight, in that main event. That was in May of this year, so he's staying active as well. I'm excited to see this one because I'm excited to see what will happen if Corey defends the takedowns of Merab, because then obviously it's in Corey's wheelhouse. Corey is also a phenomenal ground fighter. What will play into the hands of Merab is that Aljamain Sterling, Ray Longo and the team have already prepared for Corey Sandhagen once and won in dominant fashion earlier on in both men's careers. That should be a good one. Bantamweight, that's obviously for the bantamweight title across 5 rounds in the co-main event. And another fight that's been announced is Jiri Prochazka versus Khalil Rountree Jr. Prochazka coming off the TKO victory over Jamal Hill. Khalil Rountree Jr. coming off the unanimous, quite boring decision over Jamal Hill in Baku, Azerbaijan, earlier last month. The good thing about this fight is that Khalil Rountree won't be able to fight Jiri Prochazka like he fought Jamal Hill. Jiri won't allow him. Jiri will front foot pressure the entire time, which means that those low leg kicks will come into play, but it should be that. I think that fight is both a phenomenal fight and a backup fight for the main event, I personally believe. Why else would you put a fight in the same division as the main event is happening on the same card? We also have Edmund Shabazian versus Andre Muniz at UFC 320 announced, and at UFC Noche we have Tatiana Suarez versus Amanda Lemos, two girls that have been dominated by Zhang Weili. Also, one that did catch my eye this week that was announced is Luana Carolina versus Michelle Montague. Michelle Montague getting the call from the UFC. She's undefeated at 7-0, I think, or 6-0. She used to compete for the PFL. She's now in the UFC, which is a great sign for the UFC. UFC need more girls at bantamweight, flyweight, strawweight to compete with those that we already have on the UFC roster. So that was just a shorter preview podcast this week. Next week I will be back on Monday breaking down Whittaker versus Derrida. Get in the comments, let me know if you think that my keys to victory for each man are accurate, and if not, why not? I've been Frazer Krohn. I'll leave all the links and good stuff but down below. Please like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.